That's actually how you get legacy system. You had a single expert, you lose that expert,
Yeah, but
and now you have a legacy system. Nobody
I
knows how
think
to touch.
I think part of being an expert on a system is to share the knowledge. If not, you are not being representative enough of that system.
That's a senior expert then.
Might be.
Maybe next sprint we'll meet the need, but for now it's just another feed.
Hello and welcome to Maybe Next Sprint. This is sprint 1 or 2, depending how you want to count. Today we're talking about how to maintain knowledge in your team. And I am Enrico, Senior SRE and Infrastructure Manager. And my co-host is Pablo. That's too old to have a title. But anyway, he works on engineering and product team management.
Yeah, exactly. That's completely true. Welcome everybody. So in the past sprint, we mentioned about an open topic around knowledge transfer or how you keep knowledge. The specific problem around that was somebody, a good friend of mine, writing, asking about an issue on this was particular maintaining a legacy system for ages, and then all of a sudden the whole team needed to start working on it, and then the whole challenge of understanding what was it about, and a lot of time and effort to catch up on that. So we bring this topic up because it's really interesting to try to figure out how to keep maintain knowledge. So to start with, I will ask you, Enrico, what do you think it's knowledge about?
So if you focus on the team, the thing you definitely want are having knowledge of your day-to-day systems. So there are some systems that you use daily, and you want the knowledge of those things to be pretty up with your team. Then you have a couple of known rare occurring things that, I don't know, can be some certificates that needs to be manually renewed because old reasons, some old systems that often you want to or need to have some maintenance, or weird recurring problems that you never fixed, that every couple of months they will be picked up. You definitely want to have a way to map and handle your legacy systems, and that's, I would say, super on topic here.
Mhm.
And generally, the reason why you need to keep your knowledge up is because of productivity. Like, every time you work on a system that you don't know, you're wasting time on gathering that knowledge, and potentially you can also waste other resources, like you might break things in ways that are hard to recover.
Yeah, this is particularly interesting, as in the balance. How you find balance to just wasting time to catch up on a system that you're not fully aware of. On the other side, investing time on maintaining knowledge. So I think this is an interesting topic in terms of how do you measure effectiveness in around that, or how do you understand what is the limit on investing time on maintaining knowledge against facing a
Hmm.
huge empty bucket of what is this about?
Yeah, I guess definitely you can throw KPIs at that, but we're not going to discuss that, maybe next sprint. And I think a decent balance is if you have a senior enough team, um, pushing the team to write as much docs as they can. At some point, they will get too bothered to do that, and you find a balance more or less there. Um, and definitely onboarding helps. So if you have a team that does frequent onboarding, and frequent can be once per year, for example, um, it might be enough. Then making sure that the onboarding docs are very good will help you, because it means that somebody that has no internal knowledge is able to pick it up and and with there, you know that you will have gaps. Potentially you can also ask them to fix those docs. It's something that I always hate when I join new companies and like, oh, one of your first objectives is to fix our shit. It's like, no, guys, you should have decent docs. I don't want to fix that. But I see the value on having newcomers fixing docs because they will not have the complete understanding of everything internal. And so their view is definitely the view of the person that is going to pick up a legacy thing, meaning something that nobody knows anything about. So maybe also balance that would be good. And then in terms of balancing with the team, I think there are some practices that helps, like treating docs as code. It's always good for two reasons. First, you normally will have a way to handle how people deliver code in terms of quality and quantity. If you just put also docs, you can apply the same rules. So it could be usually part of your sprint, part of your tickets, part of your metrics and KPIs. You can have pairing and rotations, meaning if you move around topics and people, how they are assigned to things, then you will make sure that the knowledge is shared, because at some point you will have somebody that doesn't know about the system using that system. And then you can go crazy and do things like internal tech talks and sharing what you're doing. That usually always helps, in the sense that if you teach what you do, it will help you to consolidate the knowledge. If you need to teach somebody, most probably you will prepare material, or it will be easy to prepare material. And if somebody will listen to you, then the knowledge is shared.
So you mentioned a couple of practices here. Let me challenge a little bit all of them because that's my favorite sport. So you mentioned the document as a code. I think it's really nice and it's something that for sure it has to exist. But in that sense, two comments there. One is the investment for the future generations to come. So you are building this for future generations, but most likely future generations or your tomorrow
can be you in 6 months.
Yes, but that's your future anyway. But the thing is, on the real world scenario that I mentioned, most likely, if nobody did this in the past, you are already ruined. You are in troubles because that doesn't exist. And this is not a really aging practice. This, old code. My chances are that it's not well written as a doc in terms of that. On the other hand, nowadays we have some AI toolings all around that might help speeding up the process and all that. But yeah, I think it's a good point. I think that must exist. I mean, that's.
I mean, it's easy to
general.
add. Definitely, if you have the problem of existing systems and code, then docs as code will not help you there. Then you have to dig and write the docs wherever you want, however you want to write them. When you are building new things, having a practice, it will be like tests. You will have some kind of practices around testing, and you can have the same practices around docs, and you will have exactly the same problems. Like, oh, my tests, they're not covering, they're not getting through, they're bothering me, they're slowing me down, and will be 100% the same stuff with docs. And you will have exactly the same results if you hammer on the process enough and on understanding on why you do that. You will have decent docs, decent tests, more or less, in I would say months, not years. And if your people don't care and will never have time, then most probably you also have code. So
that's true.
in terms
true.
of tooling that can help you, fully agree on LLMs today. That can help a lot. You can definitely plug directly on pull requests and have them compile small docs that won't be good documentation. That's important. Like
Mhm.
they will not give you good documentation, but
But
they
it
will
will
give
give
you
you something.
a great draft
Yes.
that is already in your pull request. And then at some point it's like you take a look at that,
Copycat,
you fix a
paste, and
couple
delete.
of things,
Yeah.
and most probably it's gonna be better than nothing. Even if it's stating the obvious, it might help. Like stating the obvious plus adding literally half a paragraph on why you're doing that, it would be a great starting point.
I
Shall we
think,
cover digging old stuff?
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, there is not much there. But you also mentioned rotation and
Yeah.
pairing. I won't say anything about pairing because I think pairing is a must. But on rotations, it's the downfall on rotations is if you keep people rotating, you never get some really expert on the matter. It's just you get broad knowledge on a little bit of everything, not expertise on anything. So that might be a challenge too, right?
Yes, you don't want to average. Well, you need to balance your average knowledge and your experts in the team. I guess that there you will. That's where there is a huge difference between a DevOps SRE team and a pure software developer team. Um, in my experience in software development is that you usually have a small domain that is your product,
Sometimes it's
and
not that small.
it depends on the product.
Yeah.
If the product becomes very big, then you normally break the teams by domains,
Yes.
and so it's very usual to have 100 developer covering one product, split in multiple 5 teams, whatever it is. Doesn't, I mean, definitely another topic. And then in each you might have people that are a little more expert on something than something else. Best examples, you will have front-end people and back-end people. Those are developers. They're just subject matter experts in something, in something a little more specific, but most probably they would be able to work on both things. Maybe they don't like it, but they can. That can be true also on the actual product domain, and that's where rotation can help a little. Of course, you don't want to rotate backend devs on front end. That would be, then you get stabbed.
Yeah.
Then that's how you get your car
Let me
tires broken in the night. No,
let
but you can definitely rotate on domains a little so that your knowledge is a little spreaded. Then for me it's super much.
let
It's
me
okay
let
to
me
agree.
let me cut you and to clarify this. I think what we are looking for here and what we are talking about is domain knowledge on the system you're working on, not specifically on base knowledge as in technical knowledge that you can gather from books or you can get on your own to grow as a professional, right?
Yeah,
that is a
I
part
mean,
of it because at the end of the day, one thing touches the other. But
Mm.
I think the challenge here is how you keep knowledge on your systems around your people, most likely.
yeah. So if I bring back the examples on SRE, usually what happens is you hire people to cover broad topics, um, having potentially the same basic skills and knowledge, but you might have people that have deeper knowledge on cloud or then databases, then on orchestration, on CI and coding. But you want, and you use them as expert in that, meaning you have somebody that has maybe 5 years experience on something very specific, and then another 3 or 4 on something more broad. Of course, they will naturally be driven on continuing on what they are expert. That's the stuff they like the most. That doesn't mean they should only work on that unless you start to have a huge team. But let's talk about, you have 3, 4, 5 people handling the infra of 100 devs, like average medium small size company. In that case, you want to hire 4 experts in something that have basic knowledge to do basic jobs everywhere. So if I am the expert on orchestration, meaning I do whatever, Kubernetes, whatever, I need to be able to do basic stuff also on databases. How do you do that? Well, you will have potentially one person that's an expert on databases that will not be able to do so many things on Kubernetes, and you make them pair, you make them rotate. So you assign them work, or potentially you ask them to get work at least once every other cycle, whatever you are organized with, to do something that is not in their expert, small
field.
expertise field, and that will help keep them sharp. Will help a lot on your docs, because that's the time where you have somebody that knows what they're doing, working on something that's outside of their usual things. So they will need to get to the docs, they will need to ask around, they will ask the people in their team, and that's where you start seeing, oh, maybe this should be better documented, or something that I used to do a lot. Sometimes you had recurring issues and problems that required a bunch of commands that are more or less always the same, and sometimes those commands are not in the docs because you have it in your terminal history. Copy those things in the docs. It's a small change. Maybe you already have the docs saying, oh, then you need to do this and do that without the command.
Yep.
You add it, or maybe you're building a small script, you add that, or you add that you have some aliases to handle that, whatever it is. And so you keep improving your docs, and you do that if you rotate, because if you do not rotate, oh, I need to do that, maybe you check the docs if you don't remember, but then you go back on whatever you already did, and you keep just that for yourself. If you rotate, you have to at least tell this to somebody else.
Would you consider, let's say, any tracking system tool as in, I don't know, Jira, document per se?
No.
I would.
No. Tickets, for me, tickets are not documentation. Tickets are change management. Change management is not documentation. It's like saying that audit logs are change management. They're not. They can be used for the purpose. It happens that you're like, oh, I need to do this thing. We did it in the past. Let's hope and pray that the last person that did it wrote what they did in the ticket. But that's wrong. If you have a ticket that it's recurring, do the docs. Write a separate document that stays in the documentation area, system management, whatever you have, and link them. If you have a very weird ticket and you want that, you don't think it's going to happen again, definitely write. I mean, you have to write how you close the ticket. You have to explain how you did it, but that's not documentation. That's explaining what you did. In SRE world, this is a very fine line, because potentially you don't know in advance if that's happening again. Or worse, it's like, oh, this thing could be automated, so who cares now? We will do an automation next time. No, you don't. And in that case, the balance is hard, because you know that writing 2 lines to say how you fix it, potentially that's mandatory by change management. Writing an entire doc, it's not. And
It's
but
interesting because you're looking from your perspective as in cloud SRE
Yeah.
side. From my product point of view, if you write, I won't say requirement because I hate requirement concept, but if you write nice user stories, if you write nice epics and initiatives, and then you go down the line and then you have tickets in there, and then you have in the tickets PRs in there and everything, you mostly have like the most complete documentation ever. Now,
or is it?
the thing is, it's if you don't have like a source of how to build that in a sense that is easy to digest, it might take like forever for whoever wants to know or understand the thing.
Yeah, exactly. I
And
think
then you
that's the
have one
important
other thing. Sorry, yeah, there is one other thing that is the high level architecture decision, and this is architecture decision, not product decision, because I would like to think that this is coming on the epic, on the initiatives and all kind of things. If you write it well, you will have the infrastructure kind of thing, infrastructure or architecture kind of thing. It should be included in there because you can also describe the whole thing, how you're gonna face it. Now, how
No, I
far you
think the
want
problem
to go?
is no, it's different. Documentation is because you need to search about something that you don't know. So it is, oh, what this thing does, how it does it.
Mhm.
And in order to get that, you might have a bunch of tickets. If your only docs are the tickets, then you might have to dig in dozens of
Yes
them.
and no,
And
but that's why I was saying, like, if you have like well
if you have a
documented
doc,
epics, you go epics. It's not that much. Then you understand
yeah,
the problem and you can dig in the specifics if you want to.
I don't think that works. Let me bring an example to you. You have e-commerce and you're building a shopping cart. It is the day one, you're building a shopping cart. You have your epics, all your stuff, everything is in there. Cool. If that, and you're touching it, I don't know, in Q1, and it's fine, it works. And so in Q4, somebody asks, oh, how does that work? Check the epic. You check the epic, fine. Year 2, you do that again. Now you have 2 epics. Year 3, you do that again. Now you have 4 epics. The third one was lost in the middle. And what happens now? Oh, what's about this in the shopping cart? Oh, check the epics. I have 4. Each epic has 5, 6, 10 tickets. Now you're talking about, do you really want to check hundreds
Okay,
of
but
PRs?
the
That's you go to one single page that describes the shopping cart that
Yeah.
somebody should have wrote,
But
and then you link eventually the epics if you want to do it nice, and the tickets and whatever. And of course, there will be things that are relevant, not relevant. Some stuff stays from day one, some stuff got replaced, but that's
I,
why you want the docs.
I buy
The
in
docs
what you are
is
saying, but the pitfall you're mentioning equals the lack of updating documents. So
that's
the
the
pitfall
same
is
as you check all the things.
you create epics, and you don't
Yeah.
keep it all together in terms of not one single epic, but all together as a whole initiative kind of thing. It's the exact
But you
same.
might have initiatives that pile up, that naturally pile up.
Yeah, but that's becoming like a pyramid of concepts, So, and that's natural. But the same thing happened on documentation. You start with a single couple of lines, and then you go deeper and deeper, and you add more stuff, and you add, and you keep adding, and so on, so on.
And
So
if you need to search, you go to the single place that's the shopping cart. Let's keep this example documentation. That's easier than going to Jira, search for all the epics and tickets about the shopping cart that potentially you might not even see. There might be, then screw on using Jira in the bad way, but maybe you have tickets and code changes that were never on the shopping cart, but then that changed that code base, and so you don't find them. Those are the things where, only if you have docs you can know about that. And
Okay.
anyway,
Okay.
if you have decent docs, yes.
Mhm.
And that's why I believe that docs should be in a separate place, so that if you search for docs, you go to the docs, you search them. If you don't have luck, then you resort to whatever you have. That can be definitely checking tickets, hoping for decent ones, or throwing the code at an LLM, hoping that they can summarize it for you. In the middle, you might want to just ask your team, like, hey, I'm trying to do this. I found no docs. Are there docs? Can somebody explain? And you figure it out. But definitely relying only on tickets, I don't think it's a good idea. Like, you get screwed.
Okay. Relying on not updated documents is either a bad idea.
Yes, and that actually on document rot, that's where tooling is super important. You want to have clear dates and expiration time on documentation, and that's why documentation as code, in my opinion, helps a lot. If you have documentation as code, your docs and your code will rot together.
Yes.
So you know that, oh, this is very old docs, but it's linked to very old code. So it's fine. You don't need to do anything about that. If you have your documentation in a separate system that might be super fancy on the editor and whatever, then you will never know what is linked to and how updated it is. So you need to add things like, and I mean, I did that. You just need a template saying when this was last updated, and that will give you a glimpse. Generally, whatever you do, a documentation is obsolete at the moment you stop writing. So you have to deal with that, and I believe there is no way out. There is no way out.
Let me put us back on track on the matter. You were also mentioning onboardings,
Yeah.
hiring and onboardings. I'm becoming again the advocate for the devil. So let's say you want those guys to be your temperature to understand how documentation is.
Mm-hmm.
Now that will increase most likely the onboarding process in terms of, let me finish, hold on. Let's say you are onboarding someone to start working on the shopping cart you mentioned. And this is either you direct this person to go through documentation related, or if you go broader and all kind of documentation, you might not need that person to know exactly what's going on the other places, and you want that person to be onboarded quite fast because you want them to be productive, right? So this is like a thin line on how do you manage. Then if you don't have enough onboardings along the year, you
Mm-hmm.
fall on the same place. Right? So there is many documentation on legacy system because you don't need that onboarded person to touch that system that won't be reviewed.
When you talk about onboarding is long, how long is an onboarding for you, roughly? How is
Yeah,
what's an okay number for you here?
the answer is always the same. Depends. It can go. It depends on the situation, on the company, and the product, but it can go from 1 month to 3 months.
Okay, 1 to 3 months. Yes, that makes sense. And I will add, I agree with that. And I will add that you should not expect full productivity before 6 to a year, depending on where you're working with and at. So because we are talking already 1-3 months, reviewing docs will not extend that significantly. It will not be doubling the time. And we are not, of course, you cannot ask people to rewrite everything, but just pointing out, for example, the things that just don't work, uh, it would be great. And that will always happen. It could be as easy as the version of the tool, whatever that you need to use in the docs, it's obsolete. So now it's a different version. And this common, they change it because they want to fuck with you. So those are very small things. Or, order of commands. If you write something and you already have everything installed in your machine, maybe the order where you're doing things is not the best possible and you want to change it. Those very small things will not increase onboarding time. Then another super important assumption, the onboarding docs and company docs, product docs, whatever it is, for me, there should not be a difference. You should not have something that is just for onboarding, at least when you get into the technical stuff. But it should be just documentation. So to bring it real, when you join an SRE team, you will need to have a laptop or workstation setup thing. That's not just for onboarding, that's for everyone. And that's where, for example, you want to have your team keeping up with new tooling, new version of something, or the team adopts a new tool, that should be put back there. And that's also the best example of, if that document is not up to date, the newcomer will discover it in days, because it's like, oh, use this tool, why that didn't come pre-installed, or what was not in the list, etc. Okay, you add it. And then from there you go to, for example, your broad infrastructure architecture diagrams and the list of systems, and then on the details of each system, and on the eventually procedures of all the tasks. How you dig into that? Well, you might have an onboarding only document that will point you to those things, or for architecture, for example, that helps. And then at some point you will have an onboarding document that says what are the kind of things that you want the person to be assigned to in the first milestones, let's say, of your onboarding. And now we're talking about onboarding a lot, but and with that you will just throw work at them. Hey, update this system, do changes on this part of the code, whatever. In order to do that, they will need to get the docs, and then you are in the loop. Are the docs good enough for me to do the work I've been assigned? Yes. Cool. No. Is it because I don't know something, or the docs are lacking something? And you cover that.
Talking about onboarding is not just on the benefit on the onboarded, but on the benefit of the rest of the people to keep up to date with the knowledge base.
Yes, because during the onboarding, you're doing the peering, you're doing the teaching, and those are kind of the basics on how your team gets aligned. I used onboarding, for example, to onboard people of the team that maybe were in the team for a long time on something that they never watched before, because they always skipped. And I'm like, okay, if one person has to teach this to the newcomer, join the call, be in the conversation, so you also know how to do it.
But that's an interesting concept, because let's say on the initial problem that brings up this sprint, that is, if you have a legacy system, nobody knows about it, how you tackle down. Maybe one of the options could be putting someone to be onboarded. So go try to do the onboard, get up to speed as much as you can, fix things that you don't know, and then the rest will come. The rest will join the party easily. Maybe.
But that requires that you have somebody that knows about the system.
No, not really, because at some point it will be it will be an effort from somebody, but you are not blocking anything. You're just assigning someone to do something to get up to speed and fix the situation, right? And then the rest of the team, let's say you need a full team working on something that you are not aware of, You onboard someone, you make that person to bring the system up back to life with the proper documentation, knowledge, and etc. And then the rest join the party like quite fast because they just you transform someone in subject matter expert on that by fixing the situation.
Yeah, I would suggest to have 2 people. Then you might have the issue of not
Yeah,
having
well, of course, the
enough.
redundancy is always
Yeah.
a thing.
Definitely on expertise, you want to have some redundancy. But it's a super hard balance. So
Yeah.
if you have a team of 4, for
Yeah, well,
example,
half of the team
you
will be
cannot afford to have
no.
2 people on
No,
something
that's
unless
yeah.
that becomes your top priority, because it means that the other 2 people are
If
dealing with
it's top priority, you
everything
put
else.
everyone on it, probably.
Yeah,
But then it's
usually.
it's up to the situation. Is it a big system? Is it quite fast to
Yeah,
get up
but
on
definitely
speed and so on
having
and so forth?
getting one person to be an expert, regardless of how, and then making sure that there is somebody that can shadow that, be a sub expert, whatever you want to call it, will help. And definitely getting through an onboarding kind of process works. That is, do some teaching, assign him basic work, and pick it from there. On the expert SME thing, I firmly believe that you need them in your team, but you also need to make sure that most of their knowledge it's shared with at least another person, because that's actually how you get legacy system. You had a single expert, you lose that expert,
Yeah, but
and now you have a legacy system. Nobody
I
knows how
think
to touch
I
it.
think part of being an expert on a system is to share the knowledge. If not, you are not being representative enough of that system.
That's a senior expert then.
Might be, but that's true.
I
Yeah,
mean,
you cannot
no,
rely on a single person
yeah,
on a system.
yeah,
That's
you're
totally
mixing
true.
seniority with expertise. An intern can be the expert on a system.
Yeah,
If you
for sure.
hire an intern and any junior, and they make them build something, they might be, maybe they're building something super complex that works. I'm not saying that, but then they leave, and now you have no expertise on that thing. You're screwed.
No, yeah, for
Um,
sure. Again, for me, being
so expertise is not seniority in this
no,
scenario,
not at all. But
and that's why sharing.
if you have the burden to be a subject matter expert on a part of your system, one of your roles here is to be sure that other
Yeah.
people knows about it and understand what's going on. That's part of the role, I think. If you are not doing it, you're kind of failing of being the subject matter expert.
Yes,
You are doing
sometimes.
it. You are doing it by inheritance. You are like you were the only one that touched this, though you are the only
And
one
now you
knowing.
know. Yeah,
But
but
not
sometimes.
by the title, you know.
Oh, but I almost never seen somebody with that title. So usually that's tribal expertise. So you have people in the team that become the expert because either they were there and then the previous one left, or they got assigned to it, or they just picked it up. I mean, that happened to me multiple times. There is this thing to be done.
Okay,
Sure,
but maybe
let me do it. And now you are the expert.
Maybe what
But-
I'm introducing is exactly that. That is, assign the role, define the role. Say
now we're back
you
to
are the
management.
owner of this. You
We
are the
promise
subject
we
matter.
don't talk about that.
But
No.
again, maybe it's a part.
I agree. If you have it in the title, meaning if you get recognized to be the expert there, then you are potentially be driven on being extremely good at that, and that includes sharing, doing tech talks, having shiny docs and whatever, because you got the recognition. And I would say that's a bigger, wider issue, because that applies to a lot of different things, on how you keep your team working well, I would say, because you will naturally have experts. Sometimes you drive that, like sometimes you hire somebody because you know that you need that expertise, and so you hire the person you hire it to be the expert. But I would say that's rare, because usually hiring is not the first activity that you do in your team. Of course, it can be if you are scaling up, blah blah blah, but most probably you have a team, and you have that team that it's like doing their job, and so naturally they will become experts in something, and you want to have a recognition system so that they keep that could be a topic for maybe next sprint, not today.
About the expert. Okay, last
Yeah.
last one that you mentioned was internal tech talks. You mentioned like that.
Yes, could
I
be
think
also external, but
yeah, I think for this topic of knowledge, it might have to be internal, but I will put that in the context of that should be a must, not only related to knowledge sharing, but to leverage knowledge, basic knowledge, like general knowledge, on all of the teams. But now, if you join those two concepts, as in, I'm doing an internal tech talk around a single topic, and you're using your system to bring examples on how you implement a solution, then you are crashing two topics at the same time. You're leveraging all people in knowledge, in general knowledge, and you are also helping them to understand systems that you own. So
yes, I would also add that then you get people trained on sharing. That's a very hard skill, but super valuable. So having people doing tech talks, I think it's a great thing. It will unblock them on being better at sharing, and they will use that skill in a lot of other situations. It will create bond, of course, also in the teams. Usually when you do these kind of events are small internal events, so it's just an occasion to gather. That if you're full remote, it can be boring. If you are physically in a place, that means there can be coffees, or there can be snacks, there can be time that you just chat. Like it's always a great opportunity. But I love tech talks. I do it internally, I do it externally. Like for me, that's a very open door. So it's very easy. I believe that organizations that do this kind of events are way better than the one that don't, and they can be done at a lot of different scales. They can be brown bags. Again, that used to be a thing in the physical world. Like you bring your lunch, you go to a room, and you have the hour of the lunch where somebody will not eat too much and talk, and the other people that would just eat and listen to you and ask some questions. So very informal. You don't prepare too much. Nobody expects to be well done. And you do it, and you rotate, and nobody cares, and it's super nice. You can have like nicer, broader things where maybe you use a bigger room, the canteen, whatever. So you can have like tech team, etc. You can have company-wide ones, like during events, etc.
All in that sense, in internal tech talks. Now, then reality sometimes hits, and then rushing everywhere, pressure, timings, and
but that's the problem.
And then you start cutting from there.
Yeah, exactly. So you start cutting on. Oh yeah, we don't even have time to lose our lunch or 2 hours once a month, and then it's like every time you have to close a ticket, you cut on. Okay, we don't have time to do docs. We don't have time to do tests. We don't have time to write comments in the code.
Yeah.
So
and then
that's
your system
where,
is not live anymore.
And then it's like, oh, nobody knows about this anymore. Guess what?
Yes, surprise.
I mean, that's part on balancing well-being of everybody. And
yeah, absolutely.
It's hard.
Let's keep it open for comments. I think people might have really better suggestions or nicer suggestions around how you keep knowledge along your team. The sprint is over, but I'll bring the topic for the next sprint. I got a question last week around, and this is a wide, interesting question. Well, I don't know how we're gonna face it, but it's gonna be interesting. That is why we do estimations, story points, and all that kind of thing. Like, it's a wide open question, but I think I get to the point why this question was popped up. So let's keep that for the next sprint, and let's close this one.
Cool. So see you maybe next sprint.
See you maybe next sprint. Bye. Thank you.
Maybe next sprint we'll find the joy